How to delete negative thoughts from your mind. What? If I told you that negative thoughts aren't permanent fixtures in your mind, they're temporary files that can be systematically deleted using your brain's built-in removal system. Most people believe negative thoughts are something they must endure, manage, or cope with forever. They think once a thought pattern forms, it's carved into their brain permanently. This couldn't be more wrong. Neuroscientists have discovered something revolutionary about thought deletion. Your brain has a literal garbage collection system that removes unused neural pathways through a process called synaptic pruning. Every thought exists as a physical neural connection, and these connections can be weakened, severed, and completely eliminated. Tibetan monks have practiced thought elimination techniques for over 1,000 years. They called it mental purification. Cognitive neuroscience calls it neural pathway deactivation. Both describe the exact same biological mechanism. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology. This is hard science. Your brain rewires itself constantly based on which thoughts you reinforce and which you starve. Research proves that consistent thought deletion protocols can eliminate negative thought patterns within 28 days. The neural pathways literally disappear from your brain when they stop receiving activation signals. Today, I'm revealing 10 precise methods to systematically delete negative thoughts from your neural architecture. These aren't suppression techniques. They're actual deletion protocols that exploit how your brain maintains, strengthens, or eliminates neural connections based on usage patterns. Part 1. The pattern recognition. Interrupt. Most people try to fight negative thoughts with willpower. They attempt to force thoughts away through sheer mental effort. This approach fails catastrophically because resistance actually strengthens neural pathways through a phenomenon called ironic process theory. The harder you try not to think something, the more you're activating that exact thought pattern. You're accidentally reinforcing what you're trying to eliminate. Neuroscience reveals that thoughts follow predictable patterns. Specific triggers lead to specific thought sequences. By interrupting the pattern before completion, you prevent the neural pathway from fully activating and strengthening. The pattern weakens from incomplete activation. This is technique number 1 out of 10, the pattern recognition, interrupt. For 7 days, document your negative thought triggers. What situations, times, or events precede each negative thought? Once you've identified 3 primary triggers, create a specific interrupt action for each. Snap your fingers twice, say reset aloud, or touch your thumb to each finger. The moment you notice a trigger, execute your interrupt action before the thought completes. Your brain's pattern completion circuits get disrupted mid-sequence. The neural pathway fires incompletely and receives no reinforcement. After 50-60 interruptions, the trigger thought association weakens dramatically because you've prevented pattern completion repeatedly. Interrupt your top 3 negative thought patterns starting today and observe them losing power within 2 weeks. Part 2. The cognitive refusal protocol. You passively accept every thought your brain generates as if you're obligated to engage with it. The moment a negative thought appears, you follow it down the mental rabbit hole automatically. But here's what most people don't understand. You are not obligated to engage with thoughts. Thoughts are mental events you can observe without following. Your brain generates thousands of thoughts daily. Most are irrelevant. Neural noise that doesn't deserve attention. Research in metacognitive therapy shows that refusing engagement with specific thought categories prevents them from triggering emotional cascades. When thoughts receive no engagement, they pass through consciousness without leaving traces. This is technique number 2 out of 10. The cognitive refusal protocol. When negative thoughts arise, immediately label them aloud. That's a worry thought, or that's a self-criticism thought. Then deliberately refuse to engage further. Physically turn your head away as if dismissing someone in conversation. Redirect attention to present moment sensory input, what you see, hear, or feel physically. Practice this refusal 20 times over 5 days. Your brain learns that these thought categories receive 0 engagement. Without engagement, thoughts lose their emotional charge and frequency decreases because your brain stops prioritizing their generation. Cognitive resources reallocate to thought categories that receive attention. Deploy this refusal protocol consistently and watch negative thought frequency drop by 60% within 10 days. Part 3. The neural pathway starvation. Every thought exists as a neural pathway in your brain. These pathways strengthen through repeated activation. The more you think a thought, the stronger its pathway becomes. But pathways also weaken through disuse. Your brain automatically prunes neural connections that go unused for extended periods to maintain efficiency. This pruning process is how you forget information, but it can also be weaponized to delete unwanted thought patterns. Neuroscience confirms that neural pathways begin degrading after 21 days of non-activation. Synaptic connections physically dissolve when the neurons stop firing together. Your brain is constantly deleting unused pathways to free up resources. This is technique number 3 out of 10, the neural pathway starvation. Identify your most frequent negative thought and commit to 30 days of zero engagement. Every time it appears, immediately replace it with a pre-selected neutral observation. I notice trees outside, or I observe my breath. Do not follow, analyze, or resist the negative thought. Simply starve it of activation energy by instantly redirecting to your replacement observation. The neural pathway receives no reinforcement for 30 consecutive days. Synaptic connections begin dissolving through the pruning process. By day 30, the thought pattern has physically weakened in your brain's architecture. Starve one major negative thought pattern for 30 days and experience it literally disappearing from your mental landscape. Part 4. The emotional decoupling technique. Negative thoughts derive their power from emotional associations. The thought, "I'm not good enough," isn't just words. It comes packaged with feelings of shame, anxiety, and inadequacy. These emotional associations are what make thoughts feel real and important. Most people try to change the thought content while leaving emotional associations intact. This never works because the emotion reactivates the thought. Automatically, brain imaging studies show that thoughts and emotions are processed in separate neural systems that have become associated through repeated pairing. Breaking this association removes the thought's motivational power. This is technique number 4 out of 10, the emotional decoupling technique. When a negative thought appears, immediately focus exclusively on its emotional component. Where do you feel it physically? Describe the sensation without the thought content. Tightness in chest, tension in shoulders. Observe the physical sensation with curiosity for 60 seconds without engaging the thought story. Practice this separation 15 times over 1 week. Your brain learns to separate thought content from emotional response. The association weakens because you're preventing the simultaneous activation that maintains their connection. The thought persists initially but loses its emotional punch, which makes it boring and unmotivating to think. Apply this decoupling to 5 emotional thought patterns this week and watch them become powerless mental noise. Part 5. The replacement installation system. Your brain abhors cognitive vacuums. When you try to delete a thought without providing a replacement, your brain automatically fills the space with whatever's available, often the same negative pattern you just removed. This is why thought suppression fails. You need to install new neural pathways simultaneously with deleting old ones. Otherwise, you're creating empty space that old patterns rush back to. Filled. Neuroplasticity research demonstrates that new pathways establish fastest when they're deliberately practiced. In the exact contexts where old pathways previously activated, you're overwriting the old program with new code in the same trigger situation. This is technique number 5 out of 10, the replacement installation system. For each negative thought you want to delete, craft a specific replacement thought with identical trigger conditions. If "I'm going to fail" appears before presentations, create "I am prepared and capable" for the same trigger. For 21 days, the instant you notice the trigger, speak the replacement thought aloud before the old thought completes. Your brain begins encoding the new pathway in the exact neural real estate the old thought occupied. The replacement thought activates faster because you're giving it priority. The old pathway weakens from reduced activation while the new pathway strengthens from deliberate practice. Install 3 replacement thoughts this month and observe them becoming your new automatic responses. Part 6. The temporal displacement. Method. Negative thoughts feel urgent and immediate. Your brain treats them as present-moment crises requiring immediate attention. This temporal framing is what gives negative thoughts their grip. You experience them as current reality rather than mental simulations. But most negative thoughts are about past events that are over or future scenarios that haven't happened. They have no present-moment reality, despite feeling immediate. Psychological research shows that explicitly recognizing the temporal displacement of thoughts reduces their emotional impact by 50%. When you realize a thought is about a non-present time frame, your brain's urgency response deactivates. This is technique number 6 out of 10, the temporal displacement method. When negative thoughts arise, immediately ask, is this about something happening right now or about past future? Label the time frame explicitly. This is a future worry thought about an imaginary scenario, or this is a past regret thought about an unchangeable event. Remind yourself, this moment, right now, is actually fine. Practice this temporal labeling 25 times over 10 days. Your brain stops treating these thoughts as present moment emergencies. The urgency dissipates because you've revealed their temporal irrelevance. Thoughts lose motivational power when your nervous system recognizes they're not about current reality. Displace your negative thoughts temporally and watch their grip weaken immediately. Part 7. The attention reallocation. Protocol. Your brain has limited attentional resources. Whatever receives your attention gets strengthened through neural reinforcement. Most people unknowingly allocate massive attention to negative thoughts through rumination, analysis, and attempted problem solving. Every minute spent thinking about negative thoughts is a minute spent strengthening those exact neural pathways. You're feeding what you're trying to eliminate. Neuroscience proves that attention is the primary driver of neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together, but they only fire when attention activates them. Withdrawing attention from specific thought patterns initiates their degradation process. This is technique number 7 out of 10, the attention reallocation protocol. Track your daily attention allocation for 3 days. How many minutes do you spend on negative thoughts? Then create an attention budget. Dedicate 0 minutes to negative thought engagement and reallocate those minutes to a specific competing mental activity, learning something new, creative visualization, or gratitude reflection. Set 6 alarms daily to check where your attention is. If it's on negative thoughts, immediately shift to your designated alternative. Your brain strengthens the pathways receiving attention while weakening those being ignored. Negative thought patterns decay from attention starvation while new patterns strengthen from attention surplus. Reallocate your attention deliberately for 14 days and experience your mental landscape reorganize completely. Part 8. The evidence invalidation. Audit negative thoughts feel true because your brain selectively gathers confirming evidence while ignoring contradictory data. You think, I always fail, and your mind immediately retrieves every failure memory while filtering out successes. This confirmation bias makes false thoughts feel unshakably true. The thought persists because you've never actually audited the evidence supporting it. Most negative thoughts collapse immediately under objective examination. Cognitive psychology demonstrates that systematic evidence evaluation reduces belief in negative thoughts by 70%. When you expose the selective evidence gathering your brain performs, the thought loses its credibility. This is technique number 8 out of 10, the evidence invalidation audit. Take your most persistent negative thought and conduct a formal evidence audit. Create 2 columns, evidence supporting the thought and evidence contradicting it. Force yourself to find at least 10 pieces of contradictory evidence. They exist, but your brain filters them out. Rate the quality of evidence on both sides objectively. Your brain recognizes the thought as evidentially weak. The certainty dissolves because you've exposed the biased evidence gathering that maintained it. Thoughts lose power when their foundational evidence gets invalidated. Audit 3 major negative beliefs this month and watch them crumble under objective examination. Part 9. The physical state. Disruption. Your thoughts are intimately connected to your physical state. Specific postures, breathing patterns, and tension locations correlate with specific thought patterns. When you're hunched over with shallow breathing, your brain generates different thoughts than when you're standing tall with deep breaths. Most people never realize they can disrupt thought patterns by changing physical state. Your body-mind connection operates bidirectionally. Research in embodied cognition confirms that physical state changes directly alter thought content and emotional tone. Changing your body literally changes what your brain thinks. This is technique number 9 out of 10, the physical state disruption. The moment a negative thought appears, immediately change your physical state drastically. Stand if sitting, sit if standing, change your breathing pattern, or shake your body for 10 seconds. Make the physical change as different as possible from your current state. Practice this disruption 30 times over 2 weeks. Your brain learns that negative thoughts trigger state changes, which breaks the thought's stability. The thought cannot maintain itself when the physical state supporting it keeps changing. Neural pathways weaken because they're never allowed to complete in consistent physical conditions. Disrupt your physical state consistently and make negative thoughts unable to sustain themselves in your body-mind system. Part 10. The neurochemical reset routine. Negative. Thoughts are supported by specific neurochemical states. Low serotonin, elevated cortisol, and depleted dopamine create the perfect environment for negative thinking. Your brain generates different thought content based on its neurochemical composition. Most people try to change thoughts while leaving the neurochemical environment unchanged. This is like trying to grow tropical plants in Arctic conditions. Neuroscience confirms that deliberately modifying neurochemical states through specific activities changes thought patterns automatically. When you optimize brain chemistry, negative thoughts lose their chemical support system. This is technique number 10 out of 10, the neurochemical reset routine. Create a daily routine that optimizes all major neurotransmitters. 20 minutes of morning sunlight exposure, serotonin. 15 minutes of moderate exercise, endorphins. 10 minutes of accomplishing small tasks, dopamine. And 5 minutes of deep breathing reduces cortisol. Complete this full routine every morning for 30 consecutive days. Your brain's baseline neurochemistry shifts toward positivity-supporting ratios. Negative thoughts decrease in frequency because the neurochemical environment no longer supports their generation. You're not fighting thoughts. You're removing their chemical foundation. Install this neurochemical reset routine and watch your default thought patterns transform within 1 month. Deleting negative thoughts isn't about positive thinking or mental suppression. It's about understanding and exploiting your brain's neural pathway management system. These 10 techniques work together as a complete thought deletion protocol that attacks negative patterns from every angle, interrupting their formation, starving them of reinforcement, breaking their emotional power, and removing their chemical support. The meditation masters understood that thoughts are impermanent mental events that dissolve when properly addressed. Neuroscience has mapped the precise mechanisms through which this dissolution occurs. Both traditions point to the same liberating truth. You are not your thoughts, and unwanted thoughts can be systematically removed from your consciousness. The negative thought patterns that have dominated your mind aren't permanent brain features. They're temporary neural configurations maintained only through continued activation. Stop activating them and they disappear. Your transformation doesn't start tomorrow or next week. It starts the instant you deploy your first deletion technique. Your clear mind is waiting.